Section 9 of the Letters of Jane Austen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Letter 19. Steventon, Thursday, January 8th. My dear Cassandra, the perhaps which concluded my last letter, being only a perhaps, will not occasion your being overpowered with surprise, I dare say, if you should receive this before Tuesday, which, unless circumstances are very perverse, will be the case. I received yours with much general philanthropy and still more peculiar goodwill 2 days ago, and I suppose I need not tell you that it was very long, being written on a foolscap sheet, and very entertaining, being written by you. Mr. Payne has been dead long enough for Henry to be out of mourning for him before his last visit, though we knew nothing of it till about that time. Why he died, or of what complaint, or to what nobleman he bequeathed his 4 daughters in marriage, we have not heard. I am glad that the Wildmans are going to give a ball, and I hope you will not fail to benefit both yourself and me by laying out a few kisses in the purchase of a frank. I believe you are right in proposing to delay the cambric muslin, and I submit with a kind of voluntary reluctance. Mr. Peter de Barry has declined Dean curacy. He wishes to be settled near London. A foolish reason! As if Dean were not near London in comparison of Exeter or York. Take the whole world through, and he will find many more places at a greater distance from London than Dean than he will at a less. What does he think of Glencoe or Lake Catherine? I feel rather indignant that any possible objection should be raised against so valuable a piece of preferment, so delightful a situation. That Dean should not be universally allowed to be as near the metropolis as any other country villages. As this is the case, however, as Mr. Peter de Barry has shown himself a Peter in the blackest sense of the word, we are obliged to look elsewhere for an heir, and my father has thought it a necessary compliment to James Digweed to offer the curacy to him, though without considering it as either a desirable or an eligible situation for him. Unless he is in love with Miss Lyford, I think he had better not be settled exactly in this neighborhood, and unless he is very much in love with her indeed, he is not likely to think of salary of £50 equal in value or efficiency to one of £75. Were you indeed to be considered as one of the fixtures of the house, but you were never actually erected in it either by Mr. Egerton Bridges or Mrs. Lloyd. You are very kind in planning presents for me to make, and my mother has shown me exactly the same attention. But as I do not choose to have generosity dictated to me, I shall not resolve on giving my cabinet to Anna till the first thought of it has been my own. Sidmouth is now talked of as our summer abode. Get all the information, therefore, about it that you can from Mrs. C. Cage. My father's old ministers are already deserting him to pay their court to his son. The brown mare, which, as well as the black, was to devolve on James at our removal, has not had patience to wait for that, and has settled herself even now at Dean. The death of Hugh Capet, which, like that of Mr. Skipsey, though undesired, was not wholly unexpected, being purposely effected, has made the immediate possession of the mare very convenient, and everything else, I suppose, will be seized by degrees in the same manner. Martha and I work at the books every day. Yours affectionately, J. A. Letter 20. Steventon, Wednesday, January 14th. Poor Miss Austen! It appears to me that I have rather oppressed you of late by the frequency of my letters. You had hoped not to hear from me again before Tuesday, but Sunday showed you with what a merciless sister you had to deal. I cannot recall the past, but you shall not hear from me quite so often in future. Your letter to Mary was duly received before she left Dean with Martha yesterday morning, and it gives us great pleasure to know that the Chilham ball was so agreeable, and that you danced 4 dances with Mr. Kemble. Desirable, however, as the latter circumstance was, I cannot help but wonder at its taking place. Why did you dance 4 dances with so stupid a man? Why not rather dance 2 of them with some elegant brother officer, who was struck with your appearance as soon as you entered the room? Martha left you her best love. She will write to you herself in a short time, but trusting to my memory rather than her own, she has nevertheless desired me to ask you to purchase for her 2 bottles of Steele's lavender water when you are in town, provided you should go to the shop on your own account; otherwise you may be sure that she would not have you recollect the request. James dined with us yesterday, wrote to Edward in the evening, filled 3 sides of paper, every line inclining too much towards the north-east, and the very first line of all scratched out, and this morning he joins his lady in the fields of Elysium and Ibthorp. Last Friday was a very busy day with us. We were visited by Miss Lyford and Mr. Bale. The latter began his operations in the house, but had only time to finish the 4 sitting rooms. The rest is deferred till the spring is more advanced, and the days longer. He took his paper of appraisement away with him, and therefore we only know the estimate he has made of 1 or 2 articles of furniture which my father particularly inquired into. I understand, however, that he was of opinion that the whole would amount to more than £200, and it is not imagined that this will comprehend the brewhouse and many other, etc., etc. Miss Lyford was very pleasant, and gave my mother such an account of the houses in Westgate Buildings, where Mrs. Lyford lodged 4 years ago, as made her think of a situation there with great pleasure. But your opposition will be without difficulty decisive, and my father in particular, who was very well inclined towards the Row before, has now ceased to think of it entirely. At present the environs of Laura Place seem to be his choice. His views on the subject are much advanced since I came home. He grows quite ambitious, and actually requires now a comfortable and a creditable-looking house. On Saturday Miss Lyford went to her long home, that is to say, it was a long way off, and soon afterwards a party of fine ladies issuing from a well-known commodious green vehicle, their heads full of bantam cocks and gallinies, entered the house: Mrs. Heathcote, Mrs. Harwood, Mrs. James Austen, Miss Bigg, Miss Jane Blackford. Hardly a day passes in which we do not have some visitor or other. Yesterday came Mrs. Bramston, who is very sorry that she is to lose us, and afterwards Mr. Holder, who was shut up for an hour with my father and James in a most awful manner. John Bond est à lui. Letter 21. Steventon, Wednesday, January 21. Expect a most agreeable letter, for not being overburdened with subject, having nothing at all to say. I shall have no check to my genius from beginning to end. Well, and so Prank's letter has made you very happy, but you are afraid he would not have patience to stay for the Harlem, which you wished him to have done as being safer than the merchantman. Poor fellow! To wait from the middle of November to the end of December, and perhaps even longer. It must be sad work, especially in a place where the ink is so abominably pale. What a surprise to him it must have been on October 20th to be visited, collared, and thrust out of the Petrel by Captain Inglis. He kindly passes over the poignancy of his feelings in quitting his ship, his officers, and his men. What a pity it is that he should not be in England at the time of his promotion, because he certainly would have had an appointment, so everybody says, and therefore it must be right for me to say it too. Had he really been here, the certainty of the appointment, I dare say, would not have been half so great, but as it could not be brought to the proof, his absence will always be a lucky source of regret. Eliza talks of having read in a newspaper that all the first lieutenants of the frigates, whose captains were to be sent into line of battle ships, were to be promoted to the ranks of commanders. If it be true, Mr. Valentine may afford himself a fine Valentine's knot, and Charles may perhaps become first of the Endymion, though I suppose Captain Durham is too likely to bring a villain with him under that denomination. The neighborhood has quite recovered the death of Mrs. Ryder, so much so that I think they are rather rejoiced at it now. Her things were so very dear, and Mrs. Rogers is to be all that is desirable. Not even death itself can fix the friendship of the world. The Wilmots being robbed must be an amusing thing to their acquaintance, and I hope it is as much their pleasure as it seems their avocation to be subjects of general entertainment. I have a great mind not to acknowledge the receipt of your letter, which I have just had the pleasure of reading, because I am so ashamed to compare the sprawling lines of this with it. But if I say all that I have to say, I hope I have no reason to hang myself. Why did not J. D. make his proposals to you? I suppose he went to see the cathedral, that he might know how he should like to be married in it. End of section 9.